At Cemetery Number 7 in the Ruifeng district of Taiwan, hidden away in an unnoticed corner, lay an unidentified body. Initially, this case seemed destined to remain unsolved forever. Yet 7 years later, a startling clue emerged, turning the long-buried mystery on its head. This shocking revelation sent ripples through Taiwan. The key figure in this unfolding drama was none other than the owner of a popular lamb hot pot restaurant. Once the truth came to light, this restaurant owner found himself thrust into the glaring spotlight of public scrutiny. Media outlets feverishly reported that parts of the victim's body may have been served at the restaurant, leading to the case being sensationally dubbed Taiwan's version of the infamous human meat bun scandal. But what truly transpired in this chilling case? What series of coincidences finally led to the resolution of this cold case after years of silence? Let's delve into today's harrowing story, which began in Keelung City. On December 1st, 1991, a distraught woman named Li Chen Wei Kwang made her way to the Baduzi police station to report her son, Li Jun, missing for over 10 agonizing days. The last trace of him was his motorcycle, discovered parked in front of a hot pot restaurant called Ahlan, yet there was no sign of his whereabouts. Upon receiving her report, the police sprang into action, launching an immediate investigation. Through their inquiries, they learned that Li Jun, a dedicated plumber, lived a disciplined life. He worked from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. and occasionally enjoyed a drink, but he had no vices to speak of. The police first turned their attention to the Ahlan hot pot restaurant, but their initial investigation yielded no leads. As time passed, what began as a straightforward disappearance morphed into an unsolvable enigma. Years slipped away, and apart from Li Jun's grieving family, society seemed to forget about him entirely. However, 7 years later, a new report reignited the investigation. On August 20th, 1999, at approximately 2 p.m., a woman named Wang Jinlan entered the 4th Police Precinct in Keelung City to file a report. Though she appeared young, her hauntingly eerie demeanor told a different story. She had lost all her teeth, her lips caved in, and her presence was unsettling. But the content of her report was even more disturbing. With a trembling voice, Wang claimed that 7 years ago, her ex-boyfriend, Tian Xiaowan, had committed murder and dismembered the victim's body. When police pressed her for the victim's name, Wang hesitated, admitting she was unsure. All she knew was that the victim went by the nickname Yan. She recounted how she had witnessed the entire horrific incident, but had been too terrified to speak out due to her boyfriend's threats. In a chilling confession, Wang revealed that Tian Xiaowan had used pliers to pull out her teeth one by one in a bid to ensure her silence. Yet as the years rolled by, the weight of this dark secret tormented her relentless conscience. Nightmares plagued her, visions of the deceased haunting her every moment. Finally, the burden became unbearable, compelling her to come forward with the truth. Wang's recounted that 7 years earlier, she and her boyfriend, Tian Xiaowan, had opened the Ahlan Lamb Hot Pot restaurant on Banning Road in Keelung City, around 11 p.m. on November 13th, 1992. Wang Jinlan vividly recalled a pivotal moment from 7 years prior. She and her boyfriend, Tian Xiaowan, had established a lamb hot pot restaurant named Ahlan on Banning Road in Keelung City. It was a night that would forever change their lives, as events unfolded around 11 p.m. on November 13th, 1992. On a typical night at the hot pot restaurant, a regular customer known by the nickname Li Jun arrived with his girlfriend. The couple enjoyed their meal until the clock struck 1 in the morning. When the dinner concluded, Li Jun's girlfriend left, but he remained behind, unaware of the grim fate awaiting him. After escorting his girlfriend to the bus, Li Jun returned to the hot pot restaurant, intending to continue drinking. Exhausted from a long day, Tian Xiaowan's girlfriend sought rest, leaving only Alan and the intoxicated Li Jun in the establishment. Alan felt uneasy about closing the shop with Li Jun still inside, but he refused to leave, leaving her with no choice but to wait for him to relent. As time ticked away, Alan's anxiety grew. She wanted to close up for the night, but Li Jun's stubbornness prevented her from doing so. She hesitated to force him out, caught in a web of uncertainty and fear. Almost an hour had passed when Li Jun finally rose to use a public phone outside. Seizing this fleeting opportunity, Alan hurriedly began to clean up, desperate to close the shop for the night. Just as she was pulling down the metal shutters, Li Jun returned, adamant about continuing to drink. By this time it was around 2 in the morning, and Alan insisted that the shop had to close. However, the alcohol had made Lee Jun irritable, leading to a heated argument. In the midst of their altercation, Alan was roughly shoved to the ground, the tension escalating rapidly. The commotion roused Tian Xiaowan from his rest. He emerged to find a drunken man causing chaos. Known for his short temper and violent nature, Tian Xiaowan's anger flared, igniting a fierce confrontation between him and Li Jun in the stillness of the night. Both men, fueled by agitation, soon found themselves in a physical struggle. In a fit of rage, Tian Xiaowan seized a steel towel rack and struck Li Jun with it, the impact reverberating through the restaurant. Li Jun, heavily intoxicated and unsteady, crumpled to the floor, motionless. Without a hint of remorse, Tian Xiaowan dragged his lifeless body into the restroom, retrieving a lamb cleaver knife from the kitchen. Then came the sickening sound of chopping. Paralyzed by fear, Alan dared not to utter a sound, peering through a crack in the door. What she saw next would haunt her forever. Blood splattered across the restroom, a gruesome testament to the murder committed before her eyes. As the night unfolded into a nightmare, Alan, who had been witnessing the events, found herself paralyzed by horror. In a desperate bid to escape, she attempted to flee outside, seeking help from friends. But Tian Xiaowan, the restaurant owner, swiftly intercepted her, dragging her back and issuing a chilling threat. He declared that since she was present at the scene, she was now an accomplice in the heinous act. Alan later recounted the harrowing moments that followed. By the time Tian Xiaowan finished disposing of Li Jun's body and cleaning the restroom, dawn had broken. At that hour, a kitchen helper named Afu happened to be at the shop. Tian Xiaowan called upon Afu to assist in moving 2 heavy black trash bags and a cardboard box into a vehicle. To ensure Alan's silence, he wrapped the dismembered body parts in one of her padded jackets before disposing of them, warning her that should she ever speak of the events, she would be the first suspect the police would investigate. With chilling precision, Tian Xiaowan wrapped body parts in one of Wang Jinlan's padded jackets, ensuring they remained concealed. He loaded the grim package into a vehicle, his tone laced with menace as he warned her that revealing their dark secret would have dire consequences. Alan feared for her life, knowing Tian Xiaowan's violent tendencies. The weight of her silence pressed down on her, as she understood that revealing the truth would make her the prime suspect in a murder investigation. The dread of becoming Tian Xiaowan's next victim kept her from speaking out, even as he moved on and began dating someone new after the horrifying incident. Haunted by the shadows of a dark secret, she was plagued by recurring nightmares. It took 7 long years for her to gather the courage to approach the police. In her testimony, one particular detail emerged, holding significant weight in the unfolding investigation. The atmosphere was tense and fraught with controversy on the day the crime occurred. Han had disposed of a body, but Alan was well aware of the contents of the bags. It was evident that a man of Han's stature could not have hidden everything within just 2 trash bags. In that moment, Alan questioned why only 2 bags were present and where the remainder of the body lay. With chilling calmness, Han replied, "I cooked it." This chilling statement was part of Alan's police testimony. By the time law enforcement received her report, 7 years had elapsed since the horrific crime, and the Allen Hot Pot restaurant had long since shut its doors when investigators finally arrived. What they found was a restaurant transformed into a cluttered storage space. Further inquiry revealed that the property had changed hands 2 to 3 times over the years. It had even been repurposed as a hair salon. Unfortunately, the scene yielded no evidence to pursue. At this critical juncture, investigators had only Alan's testimony, with no leads on the body's final resting place. Thus, they refrained from hastily tracking down Han for questioning. The immediate focus shifted to verifying the credibility of Alan's account. With only the nickname Wen Yan at her disposal, Alan lacked further details such as age, full name, or address, except for the fact that Wen Yan hailed from Baduzi. The police embarked on a door-to-door search in Baduzi, seeking anyone who might recognize the name Wen Yan. Surprisingly, this effort bore fruit almost immediately. It turned out that Wen Yan was a plumber who had previously owned a shop near Tiaohu Road. The shop's sign bore his nickname, making him well known in the community. Remarkably, Tiaohu Road was only about 1.2 miles from the now-closed Allen Hot Pot restaurant on Baining Road. The police promptly continued their inquiries along Tiaohu Road and eventually located Wen Yan's residence. However, they found only his mother at home. She confirmed that her eldest son was indeed known as Wen Yun and that his real name was Li Jun. In a heartbreaking revelation, she disclosed that her son had not returned home for 6 to 7 years. She had reported him missing to the authorities long ago, but sadly, no news had ever emerged. This timeline mirrored the events described in Alan's harrowing account of the incident. The police began to suspect that Li Jun was, in fact, Wen Yan, a victim dismembered by the boyfriend of Alan. Yet this theory remained shrouded in speculation, lacking any concrete evidence to definitively connect the two identities. Just when the investigation appeared to stall, a remarkable coincidence came to light. In the same year as Li Jun's disappearance, police investigating an unrelated murder stumbled upon 3 unidentified body parts, igniting new hope in the case. Initially, these remains had not been linked to any ongoing investigations. Despite issuing a notice, no one had come forward to claim them, leading the police to follow standard procedures. The 3 body parts were preserved in formaldehyde and buried at Cemetery No. 7 in Ruifang under ID No. 17, closing the case without an extensive investigation. Little did they know, this would only be the beginning of a much darker unraveling. The discovery of human remains just over 6 miles from the Allen Hot Pot restaurant sent shockwaves through the investigation. The timeline of events aligned disturbingly well with the account provided by Tian Xiaoan, the restaurant owner. This prompted police to suspect that the remains, which had been unidentified for years, might belong to Li Jun. To unravel this mystery, we must turn back the clock 7 years to understand how these remains came to be found. On March 5, 1993, only 3 months after the harrowing incident at the Allen Hot Pot, police were deep into another murder investigation, this time involving the notorious Yang Si duo. It was 3:10 p.m. that fateful afternoon when officers patrolling the rugged mountains stumbled upon a severed leg near the entrance of a tunnel along the road from Ruifang to the coastal highway. An eerie silence enveloped the area, broken only by the rustling leaves as the gravity of their discovery settled in. In the adjacent sea, a severed buttock bobbed ominously in the water, a grim signal of the horror that had unfolded. As night fell, around 9 p.m., the police made an even more shocking discovery. A human head concealed within a spice carton of an unknown brand, located within a bat cave, roughly 330 feet from the tunnel entrance. Among the remnants of this gruesome find, investigators also uncovered a woman's padded jacket. Remarkably, the head appeared almost pristine, with minimal decomposition, suggesting that the crime was recent. Yet despite the shocking evidence, the police initially concluded that these remains were unrelated to their ongoing case. Following a forensic examination, and with no one stepping forward to claim the remains, the body parts were preserved in formaldehyde, only to be buried in anonymity at Ruifang Cemetery. However, as the investigation into the Allen Hot Pot case progressed, the police began to suspect a chilling connection to these unidentified remains. On September 2, 1999, the police made the fateful decision to exhume the remains. They arrived at Cemetery No. 7 in Ruifang, at gravesite No. 1793, and began the painstaking process of exhumation. Some parts of the remains, though drained of blood, were still surprisingly well preserved. Li Jun's family was called to the scene for identification, but the grisly sight proved too much for them. The head was in such a state that confirming its identity became a near impossibility. In a desperate bid for clarity, the investigators decided to compare the DNA from the head and other remains with blood samples from Li Jun's family. The results were staggering. A 96% match was confirmed between the head and the buttocks of Li Jun. Yet a haunting twist emerged. The leg, which had been soaked in formaldehyde, yielded no viable DNA. The final DNA analysis brought a grim revelation. A staggering 96% match was confirmed between the head and buttocks of Li Jun, the murder victim. However, the leg, which had been submerged in formaldehyde, proved to be a dead end, yielding no viable DNA for identification. During the forensic analysis, investigators uncovered a chilling detail: steel pins embedded in the victim's skull. This revelation indicated the victim had previously undergone head surgery. Police delved into Li Jun's medical records and confirmed the unsettling truth. He had indeed endured such an operation. The surgery had taken place at the Chonggung Memorial Hospital in Shillong on November 12, 1991, following a devastating car accident that necessitated the insertion of steel pins into his skull. Fortunately, the hospital still retained X-rays from that fateful time. These X-rays would become critical evidence, allowing forensic experts to identify the remains through a meticulous comparison. Remarkably, the fractures and the positions of the steel pins in both skulls matched with an astonishing precision rate of over 99.997%. Employing a range of scientific methods, authorities conclusively identified the head as belonging to Li Jun, the man who had been missing for 7 long years. This raised a pivotal question. Was Li Jun the Wen Yan mentioned by Alan? The answer became a crucial piece of the unfolding investigation. The connection between Li Jun's death and the narrative of Wen Yan, as recounted by Alan, grew tighter. A padded jacket belonging to the woman was discovered in the Batcave, suggesting that Tian Xiaoan Han had deliberately used Alan's clothing to wrap the body, further implicating her in the crime. This action seemed designed to prevent her from denying her involvement. When Alan first mentioned the padded jacket during her testimony, the police were unaware of the unidentified body discovered 7 years prior, nor did they know of the existence of the jacket. The discovery of the padded jacket emerged as key evidence, linking Wen Yan, Li Jun, and the unidentified remains. With this compelling evidence in hand, the police prepared to apprehend the prime suspect. Tian Xiaoan Han, now 41 years old, had taken on the role of a taxi driver. When police apprehended him, he did not resist and cooperated fully with authorities. However, in his statement, Han adamantly denied any involvement in the case, suggesting that Alan was mentally unstable and fabricating her story. Acting on Alan's testimony, the police identified 2 critical witnesses. The first was Afu, a kitchen helper from the hot pot restaurant, who had played a role in moving the body parts into a vehicle. Afu recalled that he indeed assisted in transporting certain items but claimed ignorance about their contents, only noting they included 2 black trash bags. He found the situation peculiar, as trash was typically disposed of after closing the restaurant, yet that morning Han had disposed of the bags unusually early. Afu recounted an unsettling moment when he queried Alan about the secrecy surrounding the bags. Alan had cryptically told him that Han had killed someone the night before, a statement Afu initially dismissed as a joke. However, as time passed and after a fallout with Han, the gravity of those words began to sink in. In a moment of unsettling foresight, Afu recounted that Wang Jinlan had confided in him, disclosing that Tian Xiaoan had killed someone just the previous night. Initially, he dismissed her words as a joke, but as the events spiraled out of control, he realized the gravity of her statement. After a tumultuous falling out with Tian Xiaoan, the truth would begin to unravel. Meanwhile, Afu, the kitchen helper at the hot pot restaurant, distanced himself from the case, leaving his job without a second thought. The second witness, a Ping, the girlfriend of the victim Li Jun, stepped forward with her account, offering the police a clearer picture of the events that transpired. A Ping vividly recalled that night, a celebration of Li Jun's birthday. Around 11 p.m., Li Jun had taken her to the Alon Hot Pot restaurant on his motorcycle. She remained by his side until after 1 o'clock a.m., when the atmosphere turned sour. Li Jun, having consumed too much alcohol, grew moody. Frustrated and feeling upset, a Ping opted to take the bus home alone. Li Jun, irritated that their celebration had devolved into an argument, chose to stay behind, drinking alone until around 2 o'clock a.m. A Ping later recounted that shortly after their argument, Li Gun had called a Ping from a public phone, urging her not to stay upset. However, their conversation spiraled into yet another argument. Beyond this exchange, a Ping admitted she had no knowledge of what unfolded next. Despite the weight of witness statements and Alan's allegations, Han remained steadfast in his claim of innocence. In a bid to uncover the truth, the police decided to administer polygraph tests to both Han and Alan. As the test progressed, Han consistently denied the allegations against him. However, the results revealed troubling signs of deception in his responses to 3 critical questions. Given Alan's significant role in the case, she too underwent a polygraph test. The results indicated her truthfulness, further substantiating Alan's statements while casting doubt on Han's denials, which seemed fabricated from the outset. With Alan's compelling testimony and the polygraph results in hand, the Keelung prosecutor's office proceeded to charge Tian Xiaoan with murder. Throughout both the initial trial and the appeal, the judge upheld the integrity of the police's evidence collection, reinforcing the case against Han. Alan's testimony became pivotal, sealing Han's fate with a life sentence. Yet Han was not willing to accept this verdict. He launched an appeal, vehemently arguing that the judgment was illogical and lacked substantial evidence. In his defense, he presented several reasons, beginning with the tumultuous nature of his relationship with Alan. Han recounted frequent conflicts between them. He claimed that in 1999, after he began dating a new girlfriend, Alan's resentment boiled over. In a desperate attempt to shift blame, Han accused Alan of fabricating the charges against him, alleging it was a calculated act of revenge. In his appeal, Han also highlighted Alan's troubling history of mental illness, casting doubt on the reliability of her testimony. Furthermore, he admitted that Wen-yan had indeed caused a disturbance at the restaurant that night, acknowledging their disagreements. Han claimed he had called the police around 1 a.m. He asserted that officers had arrived to mediate the conflict, yet Wen-yan refused to leave, even after police intervention. Han further maintained that afterward he had gone to his friend Ai-ha's house to play cards, mentioning to Ai-ha about the trouble caused by Wen-yan, a statement he believed would serve as his alibi, and demanded Ai-ha's presence in court. Seeking refuge, Tian Xiaowan visited his friend Ai-ha's house to play cards. That very night, he shared tales of a troublesome man named Wen-yan, who had caused chaos at the restaurant. In a desperate attempt to establish an alibi, Tian Xiaowan insisted that Ai-ha be summoned to court to testify on his behalf. In his defense, Tian Xiaowan presented a witness who raised concerns about the reliability of the polygraph results. He claimed that during the test, the blood pressure cuff had been tightened excessively, causing his arm to numb. Additionally, he alleged that the examiner had threatened him throughout the process, which adversely affected his mental state and compromised the test's validity. Based on these assertions, he contended that the polygraph results were unreliable. The fourth point centered around 3 unidentified body parts. Tian Xiaowan expressed skepticism regarding their origin. He highlighted that the remains had been discovered on March 5, 1993, while Alan's account of events occurred on November 13, 1992, a gap exceeding 3 months. Tian Xiaowan argued vehemently that it was improbable for the body to remain so well preserved over such an extended period. He suggested instead that the remains could belong to someone other than Li Jun. Furthermore, he pointed out that the DNA match was merely 96%, which he claimed raised further doubts about the identification. The evidence presented was insufficient to definitively confirm that the remains belonged to Li Jun. In a bold challenge, Tian Xiaowan questioned the integrity of the evidence chain, emphasizing that the police had failed to recover the steel rod or the knife purportedly used in the crime. The gravity of his argument intensified as he introduced a pivotal 6th point. At the heart of Tian Xiaowan's defense lay the padded jacket discovered near the head in a secluded location known as the Batcave. This jacket was crucial for linking the testimony of Alan, the witness, to the unidentified body and to Li Jun himself. Yet, during the trial, the prosecution acknowledged that the physical evidence had mysteriously vanished. Tian Xiaowan argued fervently that without this key piece of evidence, the prosecution could not definitively connect the head found in the Batcave to the crime. These 6 points formed the foundation of Tian Xiaowan's appeal. In light of Tian Xiaowan's assertions, the judge was compelled to scrutinize each claim regarding the police response on the fateful night of the incident. The judge delved into the records of the police station. However, a staggering 7 years had elapsed, leading to the destruction of any records older than 5 years. The judge then summoned officers who had served at the station during that time. Yet, astonishingly, none of them could recall handling any incident involving Tian Xiaowan's friend, Ahua. The judge also called upon Ahua, who after 7 years struggled to recollect specific details from that time. However, he did remember Tian Xiaowan mentioning a man named Wen Yong, who had caused a disturbance at the hot pot restaurant. Ahua confirmed that he often engaged in card games with Tian Xiaowan, but he was unable to confirm whether they had played on the night of the incident. Consequently, Ahua could not provide Tian Xiaowan with a solid alibi concerning the missing weapon. The judge ruled that although the murder weapon remained undiscovered, this did not diminish the evidence that substantiated Tian Xiaowan's criminal actions. The judge underscored that Alan's testimony, bolstered by other indirect evidence, was adequate to establish Tian Xiaowan's guilt. In a harrowing examination of the case, forensic experts revealed that the preservation of the head, even after more than 3 months, was largely due to the low temperatures within the Batcave. The chilling conditions extended from mid-November to early March, as winter and early spring ushered in a cold front that significantly slowed the decomposition process. This environmental factor provided a plausible explanation for the head's remarkably intact condition. Despite Han's desperate attempts to challenge the findings, the judge dismissed his arguments, citing an abundance of evidence from both witness testimonies and forensic analysis that upheld his conviction. The court highlighted a staggering 96% DNA match, underscoring that the Forensic Research Institute had utilized multiple scientific techniques, including DNA comparisons, X-ray analyses, and dental fracture matching. The comprehensive evaluation culminated in a staggering 99.997% probability that the remains belonged to Li Jun. The court deemed this forensic analysis extraordinarily reliable, particularly in light of the polygraph test results. Han raised objections, claiming that the blood pressure cuff had been too tight, thus compromising the test's accuracy. However, the polygraph examiner countered this assertion in court, clarifying that the tightness of the cuff did not affect the accuracy of the results. Han further alleged that he had been threatened during the test, yet the entire procedure had been meticulously audio recorded. The recording played in court painted a starkly different picture, revealing a calm conversation devoid of any threatening undertones. As for the loss of key evidence, the court uncovered that in October 1998, the Rufeng police station, which had housed the evidence, had suffered catastrophic damage during a typhoon, leading to widespread flooding in the Taipei area. The storm wreaked havoc on the Rufeng police station's record storage facility, sweeping away numerous files and pieces of evidence, including the very padded jacket discovered in the Batcave. Despite the physical evidence being lost to the storm, the related case documents had been preserved. These records meticulously detailed the evidence collected from the scene, which included a woman's padded jacket, a solitary sandal, a pair of brown trousers, and a spice carton that contained the human head. The judge determined that these written records were sufficient to establish that the padded jacket had indeed been present at the scene. After rigorously examining Han's 6 points of contention, the judge concluded that none were convincing enough to overturn the previous verdict. The court firmly declared that the evidence presented by the prosecution convincingly proved Han's guilt. On December 2, 2015, the court dismissed Han's appeal, upholding the life sentence handed down to him. The case was officially closed, yet it left lingering questions about the unresolved mystery surrounding how Han disposed of the remaining body parts. This question remains unanswered. Following the eruption of the case, neighbors living near the hot pot restaurant recounted hearing the unsettling sound of continuous chopping that night. Some voiced their confusion, pondering why the restaurant was so preoccupied with chopping meat throughout the night. The circumstances surrounding the case remained shrouded in mystery. After the horrifying details emerged, neighbors of the hot pot restaurant recalled hearing a relentless chopping sound echoing through the night. Many questioned why the shop seemed unusually busy, repeatedly chopping meat at such an odd hour. As the investigation unfolded, a neighbor recalled with a sense of disbelief, reflecting on the chilling reality of their community. They had often dined on lamb from the local shop, now tainted by horror. The neighbor's voice trembled as they admitted they had known the owner, and the revelation struck deep. Yet, as the truth seeped into the community's consciousness, shock settled in like a heavy fog. Conversations about the incident waned, replaced by whispers and avoidance. Reports suggested dark allegations against Tian Xiaowan, claiming he had mixed unidentifiable body parts with lamb meat, cooking them for unsuspecting customers. However, a meticulous review of the court's findings uncovered no evidence of such grotesque acts. In a letter penned from prison, Tian Xiaowan expressed resignation, acknowledging the punishment he faced while vehemently denying the rumors of cooking Li Jun's remains in lamb stew, calling them entirely fabricated. This 7-year cold case unfurled through a series of serendipitous events, revealing the fragility of justice in a world riddled with secrets. Yet, as we reflect, we cannot help but ponder how many more unidentified bodies lie beneath the soil, their stories buried in silence, waiting to be unearthed. The journey toward justice may stretch long and winding, but we maintain hope that justice, though delayed, will ultimately prevail. As we draw the curtains on this case, We invite you to join us again in our next episode, where more tales of truth and justice await.